Hello, and welcome to the critical move of Telesur, another major technological breakthrough for China. This is how the BeiDou-3 VDS satellite navigation system was launched on July 31st. What is it about this new technology that China is successfully showcasing? How does it integrate with the 5G navigation system so feared by the West? What geopolitical moves does this new global connectivity initiative involve? Let's deploy the board. We're making the first move. Press reports show that more than a month ago, China sent its latest BeiDou satellite into outer space. In this way, China completes nearly 30 years of deployment of its orbital navigation network. However, this is only the beginning, as the system is expected to play a greater role in global connectivity. Let's hear statements. BeiDou is not only from China, but also from the world. It serves not only China, but also the world. Once completed, the BeiDou system will provide users around the world with basic navigation, short message communication, international search and rescue, among other services. BeiDou system services have covered more than 200 countries and regions with over 100 million users and has provided daily services up to 200 million times. More than half the countries in the world have started using the BeiDou system. China's effort in the space race is part of the peaceful exploration for mankind. The use of outer space is clearly designed for peaceful purposes. The universe is big enough for exploration and cooperation among all countries together, on the basis of mutual respect, openness, inclusion, equality, and mutual benefit. China will continue to strengthen space exchange and cooperation, share the fruits of its development, and contribute to promoting human civilization and social progress.
The
deployment of the BeiDou satellite navigation system was completed half a year ahead of schedule, and the complete system was launched to provide services. More than 400 organizations and over 300,000 scientists and technicians work together to overcome more than 160 key technological obstacles, such as links between satellites and high-precision atomic clocks, and made progress in the independent development of more than 500 types of components. All central components of BeiDou-3 satellites are manufactured in China. BeiDou products have been exported to more than 120 countries and regions to provide services to over 100 million people, benefiting Asian, South Asia, Eastern Europe, West Asia and Africa, in land surveying and mapping, precision agriculture, digital construction, and intelligent port construction. We have seen that there were many changes. For example, it can be applied with high precision in wind energy, which increases the profits by more than 20%. Combined with 5G, the BeiDou system can bring about evolutionary changes in unmanned driving, automatic driving, and unmanned aerial vehicles. Let's see in detail what this satellite navigation system is about, which puts China at the forefront of geolocation. China decided to activate its own satellite navigation system known as BeiDou-3, BDS-3, in its race towards the technological sovereignty and independence from the Global Positioning System, GPS, created and managed by the United States. BeiDou-3 was launched into orbit on July 31st from the Xinjiang Satellite Launch Center in the southwest of the country. This navigation system is composed of a group of artificial satellites that operate together as a single system, has been launched in 3 phases. BeiDou-1 placed in orbit since 2000, and it was composed of 3 satellites. BeiDou-2 was launched in 2011 with the aim of improving the system's capacity with the addition of 10 more satellites to cover the Asia-Pacific region. And BeiDou-3, since 2015, 22 more satellites have been added to the system, so that since its launch in 2020, it will achieve global coverage. With 35 satellites and an investment of $10 billion, this system promises better and more precise global navigation over range than GPS, which has 32. Although originally designed for the Chinese army, the BeiDou system, which means Great Bear in Chinese, has become a commercial opportunity for China, will provide access to geolocation information for both military and civilian activities. The government assured that its system will have a location accuracy of 10 centimeters, while on the GPS it is 30. BDS also offers communication services because it has higher bandwidth, in addition to incorporating more stable and precise atomic clocks, according to the Chinese Academy of Space Technology. The Chinese phones Huawei, Xiaomi, and OnePlus already have access to the BDS, while 200 other countries have requested the service from China. Some 30 countries participating in the Strip and Route initiative already have access to it. The main advantage of the Asian giant having to own system is the security of access, since it does not depend on other countries like the United States to provide it. However, Beijing is not the only one that has become independent of GPS. Moscow also achieved with its GLONASS system a set of satellites put into orbit in the late 90s. I invite you to check some digital information in relation to this matter. Let's see what Xinhua has published on August 5. China-focused boats avoid typhoon thanks to Chinese BeiDou satellite navigation system. When Typhoon Gabupit, the fourth this year, approached the coastal areas of the eastern Chinese province of Fujian in early August, all the ships from the village of Sanshan in the Shab district were already docked in the bay. A total of 12,000 Fujian fishing boats began installing the BeiDou position indicators in 2019, while VDS-backed system was established to assist with emergency response. The BeiDou indicator is not detachable, and the built-in battery can autonomously supply power for 5 years, providing real-time location of the boats, even when they are in open water, said Ma Jiawan, director of the Disaster Response Center of Fujian's Provincial Oceans and Fisheries Department. Ma added that the system supported by BDS can also help with disasters alarms, automatic identification, information dissemination, and early warnings on sea conditions, significantly improving the safety of fishermen. The BDS system has also supported China's efforts in flood control and has assisted in monitoring geological deformation, issuing early warnings, and moving residents to safe locations. Another Chinese media, CGTN, on August 6. Technology breakdown: how to use the BeiDou navigation system in your phone. Let's see. The truth is that you don't need to download any new application to use the system. Common navigation applications, delivery applications, or car call applications can use the BeiDou system's positioning service. Civilian teams like our phones can choose which navigation system to use. It will automatically select the system with the best signal at that time. So, maybe you may be using the BeiDou system right now, but not all smartphones are compatible with BeiDou. Currently, most Android phones can use the BeiDou system, but if you are an iPhone user, you cannot use it because the chips in Apple's product line do not support the system. To check it out, you can take a look at your phone's technical specifications. Here's when it comes to the geopolitical conflict now. Another way to find out if your phone is compatible with BeiDou is through GPS test applications. Your phone can use BeiDou services if the application can detect BeiDou satellites. There are also people who ask if BeiDou can be used outside China. You can do this in the same way that we can use GPS services in China. And in the midst of the technological race that China is undertaking, how does the United States behave? Let's see the reaction. The Asian giant itself sends a message to the Imperial Eagle. Let's check. China urges US not to open Pandora's box in TikTok case. China described as pure manipulation the US campaign against the application of short videos TikTok by the Chinese company BeiDou, and warned Washington not to open Pandora's box or suffer the consequences. Chinese Foreign Affairs spokesman Wang Wing said at his daily press conference, "It is common for the United States to use its state power to violently attack companies in other countries. In his opinion, if this mistake by Washington is repeated, any country will be able to take similar measures against any American company based on national security." U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday gave ByteDance until September 15 to transfer TikTok to U.S. Capitol or face a ban on its operation in the country for national security reasons. TikTok, which has over 80 million users in the U.S., is one of the fastest-growing social networks in the country in recent years, where it has become the main entertainment for many teenagers and a marketing channel for important celebrities. Let's place, once again, this technological leader on the geopolitical map. China, geostrategic power, located in Central Asia with an area of 9,596,960 square kilometers, the People's Republic of China is the third largest country on the planet after Russia and Canada. It is bordered by 14 sovereign states: Vietnam, Laos, and Burma in the southeast, India, Bhutan, Nepal, and Pakistan in the south, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan in Central Asia, Russia, Mongolia, and North Korea in Eastern Asia. In addition, it shares maritime borders with South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and the Philippines. The territory is divided into 23 provinces, including Taiwan, 5 autonomous regions, 4 municipalities under central jurisdiction, and 2 special administrative regions, Hong Kong and Macau, which are managed under the one country, two system policy. China is a continental power that controls an extensive coastline from the Sea of Japan in the northwest to the Gulf of Tonkin in the south. Its coasts are bathed by 2 strategic seas, the East China Sea and the South China Sea, the former being a center of dispute with Japan. The second is the second most important maritime area in the world, linking Europe, Africa, and the Indian Ocean with East Asia. It is economically important because of its abundant fishery resources and hydrocarbon reserves. It also has 50,000 kilometers of navigable rivers that flow in general from west to east, and most of them flow into the Pacific Ocean. Agriculture is of vital importance in the national economy. That's why the agricultural population is in the majority. China has a large amount of mineral resources in its possession. Iron reserves are estimated at 40 billion tons. Its refined tin production accounts for 8% of the world's tin. It also has others such as magnetite, molybdenum, mercury, manganese, lead, zinc, copper, and uranium. China is the world's largest consumer of energy and the leading producer of solar panels and wind turbines. Since 1996, China has been the world's leading producer of steel, coal, cement, fertilizers, and televisions. It is the third largest producer of automobiles after the United States and Japan. Many consider it the biggest market and economic power on the planet for its gross domestic product in terms of purchasing power parity. In terms of defense, it has the largest armed forces in the world, composed of the People's Liberation Army, with at least 2.3 million members divided between the land forces, the Navy, the Air Force, and a strategic nuclear force known as the 2nd Artillery Corps. It's a nuclear power and has the world's first merchant marine. China is also one of the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council with veto power. In addition, it is part of the bloc of the 5 emerging economies of the world, the BRICS, together with Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa. Together with Japan and South Korea, China is engaged in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations through the Asian Plus 3 Forum, with the aim of accelerating economic growth and promoting peace and stability in that region. In order to expand its presence in new territories in the face of the obstacles put by the West, China makes millionaire investments with development projects in countries rich in raw materials, as well as creating alliances where everyone wins. For this reason, it has become a sort of alternative World Bank, as it has a huge amount of foreign currency. China is committed to multilateralism, and it is reflected in its initiative, the Street and Route, one of the most promising platforms for international cooperation, forging a new path towards inclusive globalization that produces shared benefits and solid alliances with nations such as Russia, Venezuela, Iran, and others not aligned with the policy of the White House. In the last 10 years, the volume of trade between China and Latin America has multiplied, with hundreds of agreements signed and dozens of projects underway in key areas for the region, such as energy, transport, and infrastructure. In the current circumstances, when the world is facing the COVID-19 pandemic, China leads the list of supporting nations by sending medical supplies such as face masks, protective suits and gloves, as well as trained personnel to countries in need. In parallel, has donated 20 million to the World Health Organization, following the U.S. announcement of the suspension of its funds to the international organization. Let's take our first break in a critical move. Remember, there is always a strategic move in social media for you to participate with us. Today's, it says like this. Step by step, China is consolidating its BeiDou geopositioning and satellite navigation system, a competitor to the American GPS, and complementing it with its 5G network. Will the U.S. be able to stop China in its race for technological sovereignty? Leave your opinion, participate with us. Let's take a short break. In the midst of a complex scenario in which the United States pushes to stop China's development, the Asian nation manages to shield its technological sovereignty. Let's see the context. China's high levels of technological innovation are in line with the Asian nation's policy of sovereignty. This transformation and its impact on the economy is taking place amidst the pressures exerted by the United States to stop Beijing. One example is the BeiDou-3 satellite geopositioning system, an alternative to its similar GPS in the US, Galileo in Europe, and GLONASS in Russia. In addition to these advances, China has become the second country after the United Arab Emirates to send a probe to Mars, in a race that also involves Washington to discover more mysteries of the red planet. With this space mission, China is planning to detect signs of life and determine if it is possible to adapt Mars to host human life in the future. China's plan for greater technological independence also includes the development of the 5G wireless network. This aims to maximize the potential of its telecommunication companies based on a system that allows greater connection speed. Experts predict that commercial use of 5G will accelerate sustainable economic growth, and in the period 2020-2025 will generate high value-added revenues. The wireless network has fallen victim of the strong American campaign against corporations such as Huawei and ZTE after the market became more competitive for companies with aspirations to win contracts in this area. Technological innovation has made it easier for China to undertake structural reform that has enabled it to significantly improve the living condition of its people. This strategy of strengthening its technological sovereignty covers sectors such as mobile communication, pharmaceuticals, disease prevention, construction of vehicles powered by alternative energy, as well as air pollution control and poverty reduction. We start the analysis in our critical move today. We have from Mexico Dr. Adalberto Santana, researcher at National Autonomous University of Mexico, known worldwide as UNAM. Doctor, welcome one more time to our critical move. How are you? Hello, how are you? It's such a pleasure to be back here with you. Thank you. Doctor, we emphasize again the conflict between China and the United States, taking as a pretext on this occasion these announcements by China on the new system of geopositioning, which is consolidating more and more for the sake of its technological sovereignty, but a technological sovereignty that can obviously also be translated as a sovereignty in all other aspects of life. Is it true? It's true. Let's say that we are in a context where every time it's stronger the rivalities between United States and China, and especially the United States, which sees it as a potential enemy and not as a co-partner in the global scenario, where today they have to share some series of scenarios, but on the field of communications, and when we're talking especially about global level, and when we're talking about satellites that are around the Earth, China keeps going on in this field, and it's winning, and it's in this communicational war. It's winning over the United States, and we see this in a context where President Trump has behaved in a very aggressive way against China because on one hand we see that elections in America are coming soon, and China it's becoming so important around the world, especially when it comes to technological and communications issue, and it's affecting the North American government. And when we see Huawei company, which is one of the most important companies worldwide, which dominates the market of cell phones, and it has improved and it has increased their sales worldwide. So it has diminished the capacity of other companies who also sells cell phones. And also, as it was pointed out at the introduction, well, China has been improving along this race to get the control and expansion of communications by sending the satellite to Mars, which shows the capacity of its technology, which keeps on developing. And recently, it was to send off to the airspace a new satellite, which makes wider the number of satellites that China has on the outspace. China has already 35, while the United States only have 32. So it has a big advantage. And this is one of the other elements that leads behind the North American companies of telecommunications. And especially because China, with these new satellites, it starts to win the first place by having 35 satellites around the Earth, while the United States only possesses 32, and with less velocity than the Chinese satellites. Will be then in that role that the Trump administrations will respond in a way it has done in the last days against the TikTok application, for example, when he says he's going to ban it in the United States, Chinese control, so that it goes into American hands. And also the response that he has gotten from China, it would be worthwhile to subject it to an analysis in a critical move. Because, for example, we can see how China is moving from denunciation to action, to taking countermeasures, as also Iran has done it. That gives us a very interesting point in the current geopolitics. Yes, indeed, it's because China keeps on improving its capacity and its productive forces with a system with very particular socialist characteristics, which allows more developing of those productive forces. Therefore, today, when we see their satellites, world communications worldwide, they have the capacity and the speed, and the called GPS in the United States doesn't have the same capacity that China is going to have today. And we've seen that already 200 nations worldwide are asking China to have access to these satellite systems, which have a better speed and are more precise in the geolocalization. So, in order to understand it in a more graphic way, why? Because it's an automobile with more capacity will have so much more capacity to get in contact with the planes, or will have a more precise localization. Also, a taxi driver will be able to locate one direction in a more speedy way to be able to get to one point. So this new system called BDS from China, so it's going to be so much more exact and precise in its magnitude. And obviously this put in GPS from US in a less comfortable position. And China is going to be getting stronger by the time. Now, Doctor, as part of that campaign that the West, and mainly the United States, has undertaken against China, it is said that with the development of these technologies, China would have greater control of the world. How do you interpret that? As a greater control of the world, or as a greater leadership in information and communication technologies to make people's lives easier after all? Yes, I would understand it as a greater leadership, as China allows to reduce the cost, which is good for the majority of countries. And when we see powers such as the United States and the European Union, and also when we see China, which with this accomplishment, such as with Russia, well, this makes that this country has a more effect worldwide, and also to have a greater capacity. And we see it today in the case of the pandemic, as the World Health Organization says, to be able to detect people who might be infected. Well, it is possible to do this through the cell phones, and particularly China can use its system and to locate where are the areas with the most conflicted parts or heated by the pandemic. And many countries today, along with Cuba and Vietnam, countries that have a better control over the pandemic. And we can see that the development of the technology and communications and technologies and information. This development of information and communication technologies that China is undertaking necessarily forces a reconfiguration of the world's geopolitics. That reconfiguration toward which it is leading, and who is leaving behind? Well, indeed, I think that this is going to reconfigure the situation worldwide and the geopolitics with a key role that is the same process of globalization, which leads to socialize some series of elements. And, for example, in the field of telecommunications and information, well, the majority of population, the majority of people and countries need to interconnect. We lost communication with Dr. Adalberto Santana. Look, what a coincidence. Just today when we are talking about technological development. We are going to take another little break, and then we will continue to reflect with another guest. But first, I would suggest you to join our analysis through our strategic move in Twitter. For you to participate, let's remember it. There it is. Step by step, China is consolidating its BeiDou geopositioning and satellite navigation system, a competitor to the American GPS, and complementing it with its G5 network, will the US be able to stop China in its race for technological sovereignty? Stay with us, leave your opinion, and we'll be back very soon. Everything we have analyzed from a technological point of view is part of this Chinese flag initiative, known as Stripped and Root. Let's take a look. Thanks to interconnectivity, it has become possible to share resources, develop trade and exchange information, especially today, when we can see an increasingly globalized scenario and the necessary social isolation imposed by the pandemic. Since before the eruption of the COVID-19, China had been undertaking initiatives such as Stripped and Root, a challenge to neoliberal globalization, and a proposal for interconnectivity that emerges as a regional project, but foresees as a global plan, reconfiguring the geoeconomy and geopolitics. The project aims at greater infrastructure connectivity and financial integration. China would be linked to Europe through Central and West Asia by land routes, but it also plans to interconnect with other geographical areas through maritime routes. The initiative proposed by Beijing in 2013 has become one of the most promising platforms for international cooperation under the principle of win-win, that is, without a supremacist position. This differentiates it from other forms of trade relations carried out by neoliberal powers. According to the Xi Jinping government, the priority areas include building a platform to advance cooperation, as well as an ecological, healthy, intelligent, and peaceful Silk Road. Italy, Greece, Switzerland, Austria, and several Eastern countries have already joined the initiative. Latin America and the Caribbean also see here an opportunity to shorten distances and join the trade with Beijing. The region has been considered as a natural extension of the waterway. The United States has tried to block this advance of the Asian giant from the technological point of view, but with a geoeconomic and, above all, geopolitical vision. In the context of its economic war, Washington has been critical of the initiative as a means of extending Chinese influence in the world and burdening countries with an unsustainable debt through projects that it describes as not very transparent. However, Trade Ministry spokesman Gao Feng reported that the initiative has a strong foundation of cooperation. Official data record that the volume of Chinese trade with the countries involved represented 30.4% of the total, in addition to a 0.9% year-on-year increase in the first 4 months of the year, to reach 2.76 trillion yuan, which is about $388,730 billion. We continue with the analysis. We have from Argentina Marcelo Ramirez, Director of Production in Asha TV and geopolitical analyst. It's an honor to have you here in our critical move. Before going into the particularity of our analysis today, I want to rely on this material that we have just put at the disposal of our viewers related to the Stripped and Root initiative, deeply studied by you, to analyze some trends that particularly the West, and particularly the United States, has been using as metrics and information. And it has to do with that advanced China, seen by the United States as a practically troglodyte Chinese action. However, we see in this note how several countries are joined more and more to the Stripped and Root initiative. Are these countries suicidal, or do they simply see clearly the benefits of this initiative? Well, obviously no one is suicidal. What is going on is that there is a war of propaganda. Before that, this didn't have the necessity to come to this because of its financial and economical capacity, and also its diplomatic and political capacity, and also the initiative of any countries who would try to get a market who was just reserved for the United States. Now the problem is that with the emergence of China, it has started to change their rules of the game. Not too long ago, nobody thought that new technology, for instance, which is the 5G technology, would came from China. And now we find that the GPS from the United States now has a rival at a global level, which is how is China. And the way that China is increasing with the speed it is developing its technology, the financial support that was able to transfer or simply to copy its own technologies, we have to know that without a doubt it's a race that it is unstoppable. So the only thing that remains is to appeal to the United States when it comes to the communications issues. So here's where we see all these sort of campaigns of against China, which tell us that they are evil, and this is going to be something that many countries have done before, and now they just freaked out because Huawei has all this information. And it's not something strange when we see that American companies have had access to seed ports throughout the history. When other countries has it, well, it's like everything starts to change. Thank you. Stay with us. Ignacio Villagran just connected with us. He's a sinologist, director of the Center of Argentine-China Studies of the Faculty of Social Sciences of the UBA. We add you to this dialogue that we are holding with Marcelo. Notice that Marcelo highlighted a topic that has been a little dealt in our critical move. At least I have brought it up a few times, and I would like to go a little deeper as a person who knows about Asian thinking and Chinese thinking in particular. And this has to do with that image that us Westerners have of the residents in China, where everyone is patient, where they take life with certain calm and serenity. They believe more in the constancy of work, but without agitation. And on the contrary, the Western part is more seen as a civilization that practically goes on the run. So here the question arises: how is it that the Chinese, being seen by the West in this way, have achieved so quickly these technological advances that practically, when we look at them from here, we say, well, what are they going to leave for the others? Hello, Ray. It's really nice to see you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. And yes, well, the perception, thinking about the Chinese and the media, the Chinese that are known from Latin America and other parts of the world, and that false idea, fake idea that they are a little more relaxed, and that idea of a more flexible Western, more patient, but that is completely outside the reality. When we see the technological advances of China, well, they prove it wrong. As Marcelo was talking, it's not about copy, it's about to be at the point, at the head of the technological development. And when we see the technological space, there's still a long way to go to reach the main powers. But this is changing, and I think that we can see a factor that it's when it comes to number. I was talking about with a colleague when I was in Beijing, and we were talking about the difference between a group of engineers in Venezuela when in this aircraft navigation engineer. The difference is in just one university there are 1,300 engineers working all at the same time in the same objective. And in these high technologies, this is what it has given a possibility to change. And of course, it will do it in the coming years. This is added to a state policy which is invest very strong in the technological development. So these initiatives, we know that they're not only from the private side, but also has a very strong support and strong base with the state investment for the development of education. Marcelo, we had left an idea half developed with Dr. Santana in the previous blog, and this had to do with the geopolitical reconfiguration that is being imposed with these giant leaps that China is taking on the basis of technology to ensure its technological sovereignty, but that in the end is ensuring its national sovereignty. And with this sovereignty, with this autonomy, geopolitics is being reconfigured. More and more countries are looking to the east and turning their backs on the west, which at the time was, let's say, the flag when it comes to technology terms. Well, yes, it's an unavoidable process. When we see the capacities of financial project, and to convince the world that the quality of your products is really the very best, and China is capable to put things on the space and to undertake a mission to Mars. And when we see the issue of global positioning, we're talking about a very good technology. And when they have the capacity to produce in quantities and qualities that surpasses the same that the United States may have. So I think that basically China has achieved to show themselves as a very well player, and this means that sooner or later China will claim the space that it should have. When we see the role in which China is being restricted, and on the representation of Western countries, and a sub-representation of China, it all responds to the model of other times, which has been a little bit obsolete. So what we see here is that fight of pressure where spaces, and somehow this will allow to relocate the structural situation back to the concrete reality that we have, when China is at least a power that already is at a level of which the United States already is. And the United States could be also above. So I think that the most important, as there are the financial ones, so this is where we can see, and in some cases we can already see how China starts to position itself at the same level of the United States with the technological development of a higher level, as we have been able to see when it comes to the military terms. So the necessity that at some point this can be translated, can be put into graphics at a worldwide level. This is what China is going to achieve. And as we were talking earlier, there's a way in China that cannot be confused. They're not as fast or less. It's just that they have another point of view of what it is, the goals as individuals. Their individual matters to the ones of their homeland. And these terms has to do more with the objective and with the punctual development of time over time. And what we are seeing in recent years, Marcelo, what do you think? Will the U.S. just stand by and do nothing about it? Well, that depends most of all of what happens on the inside. I think that the idea of Trump is if he wins the elections, there are people who think that he will settle to negotiate with Russia and China, which are the most influences at a worldwide level. And this is not good and not bad. Us, Latin America, we go under the influence zone of the United States, but maybe he will reconsider this aggressive attitude and what has to do with the commercial and military in the recent centuries. But in the case that Trump doesn't win, the second possibility, I see the Russian people are very concerned in this sense because they see that the model that represents the sector of the Democrat Party has been more aggressive outside. So whoever wins the access of China is something that we still depending on. So the way that the United States reflects it has a lot to do with what is going to happen on the inside. But there's still a lot of internal confrontations. Thank you, Marcelo. Ignacio, I also want your opinion on this issue. Will U.S. succeed in imposing itself on China? Will it stand up? China will stand up without doing anything about it. And in the face of this advance that China is evidencing, and above all, as Marcelo said, in this pre-electoral context, how do you see it? Well, I don't think that he didn't just stand by in the sense that he already made some tactic moves, very particular, such as it was the Huawei issue last year and all the investigation and accusations on the stealing espionage that also was mentioned before, which was very complex situation. And then we see Europe suggesting that the presence of the 5G Chinese to be in Europe, I think that not only going to stand by it, I think that it's going to make a very strong mediatic move in front of these technological improvements of China. So in this sense, we think that it's going to continue, and at a particular level, let's say that in the last chapter of this series, and the closure of the consulate of China in Houston, so we see that there are tensions right there, very strong. We can see it very frequent, very often, with all the cards on the table. So there's no very interest of hiding this situation. So what the Trump's administration is going to do related to China's improvement and development. So in this concrete advance and the improvement of this technology that China has brought up, but just to slow down the advance of China. So this is going to be our next qualitative jump. So we still have to do how are going to be the developments. And as always, I think it's clear that there is not just to stand by, but to start to go and see that this is going to be very significant for the world market. But thank you so much for your opinion, for our critical move, and also Marcelo, both of you for your time. See you soon. Let's go to conclusions. On the eve of a presidential elections that could change the course of a leaking ship, the U.S. is focusing, though, on slowing down the progress of China, while, slowly but surely, this country consolidates its technological sovereignty with countless applications. In this way, the red giant puts the so-called Internet of Things around the corner for the sake of good, not for colonizing purposes, as malicious campaigns are trying to make us see. Will imperialism succeed in aborting this initiative? What will happen if the dragon manages to become independent sooner than the eagle foresees? What world will we live in under the new leadership? Do not despair. All the answers will come in due course. Don't be afraid either. There is no reason to fear. Cooperation and solidarity is necessary. For today, we close the geopolitical board.
Agradecemos y felicitamos.